The seismic tremors were the first sign, not the kind that shook the ground, but the kind that spoke. On Xylos, a world of crystalline spires and molten rivers, the silicon-based Sileni communicated through vibrations in the crust. They were the preserve's wardens, ancient and unyielding, and they had detected something new, something loud, something fragile. A human survey team, led by Elias Vance, had arrived to catalog the planet's flora and fauna, their boots crunching on the brittle surface, their voices a cacophony of seismic noise to the Sileni. Elias, a botanist with calloused hands and a quiet intensity, didn't understand. To him, the tremors were just tremors. But to the Sileni, the vibrations were an invasion, a deliberate violation of their sacred silence. They interpreted the human presence as a threat, a challenge to their millennia-old dominance. The Sileni's response was immediate. Crystalline formations rose from the ground, sharp and jagged, forming a cage around the survey team. The air grew thick with a low, resonant hum, the sound of 1,000 voices screaming in a language no human could comprehend. Elias and his team were trapped, their instruments dead, their only weapon the sheer panic in their chests. The Sileni had declared war. The first casualty was not a life, but a symbol, a small, crystalline growth, nurtured by Elias for weeks, shattered under the weight of a Sileni's seismic pulse. It was a gesture of defiance, a warning. The Sileni saw it as an act of aggression. Elias, watching the destruction, felt a cold dread settle in his bones. He tried to communicate, to shout, to reason, but his voice was lost in the planet's symphony of fear. The Sileni advanced, their crystalline bodies shimmering in the dim light, each step sending ripples through the ground. Elias's team, a mix of scientists and security personnel, fell back, their training no match for an enemy that fought with the very earth beneath their feet. The Sileni were not hunters like the humans. They were predators of a different kind. They didn't kill for sport. They killed for silence. They saw the humans as a disease, a noise that must be purged. Elias, cornered against a towering spire, knew they were outmatched. The Sileni were too many, too fast, too connected to the planet itself. He had to find a way to make them understand. Before they were all silenced. The turning point came not with a weapon, but with a whisper, or what passed for one on Xylos. Elias, remembering the shattered crystal, knelt. He placed his hands on the ground, his fingers splayed and focused. He didn't try to mimic the Sileni's deep, resonant hum. Instead, he sent a different kind of vibration, a soft, rhythmic pulse, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. It was the vibration of care, of nurturing, of a promise to protect. The Sileni paused. Their aggressive tremors faltered. They had never felt anything like it. It was not a threat. It was not a challenge. It was an offering. Elias poured every ounce of his will into the pulse, pouring his fear, his hope, his desperate plea into the ground. The Sileni began to move, their crystalline forms shifting, their seismic language softening. They circled him, their vibrations no longer sharp and angry, but curious, probing. They felt his sincerity, his desire to coexist. The war was not over, but the battle had been won, not by force, but by understanding. The Sileni's response was not a surrender, but an invitation. They led Elias to a hidden chamber deep within the planet's crust, a place of silent reverence. There, they showed him the true nature of their world, not a hunting ground, but a sanctuary. The preserve was not for sport. It was a refuge for species too fragile to survive elsewhere. The Sileni were not wardens. They were guardians. The misunderstanding had been catastrophic, born of a language barrier as vast as the stars. But now, a bridge had been built. Elias, his team safe, stood in the chamber, the soft vibrations of the Sileni surrounding him like a benediction. He had come to study their world, but he had learned something far more profound. The greatest strength was not in the loudest voice, but in the softest touch. The Sileni, in their silence, had taught him that. And in return, Elias had shown them that not all noise was destructive. Some was the sound of life, of hope, of a future they could share together. The war was over. The preserve was safe. And the humans, for the first time, were not just visitors. They were family.